The Force is one of the key things people think about when it comes to Star Wars. But what exactly is the Force? We know it's what gives the Jedi and Sith their powers, and that it allows for characters to accomplish things that would otherwise be impossible. But for all the characters who use the Force in the world of Star Wars, we know shockingly little about what the Force actually is. In this video, let's try to pin down this nebulous concept by exploring the roots of the idea of the Force, different depictions of the Force in Star Wars media, and also real-life philosophies and schools that have spawned from George Lucas's vision. But first, let's focus on the beginning. The very first thing that we ever learned about the Force from Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. When Luke gets his lightsaber from Obi-Wan, he's told about the Jedi Knights and the Force. This quote is worth breaking down and understanding. The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. Through this simple quote, we learn that all living things both create the Force and are bound by it. We later learn that there is a light side and a dark side to the Force, and that it enables people to do wonderful things when it's used. Other Jedi describe the Force in similar ways. In the same movie, we see Obi-Wan use the Force several times for rather small tasks, such as creating distractions and using mind tricks. However, when we see his body vanish after his duel with Darth Vader, as well as his ability to speak to Luke after his death, the Force quickly becomes something much more powerful. Much like any idea that was ever put to screen or paper, the Force had to come from somewhere, believe it or not. There are many real-world religions and schools of thought that believe in a concept very similar to the Force. For example, the Tao believe that there is an energy field present in all living things that is infinite, eternal, and will last long after we are gone. The Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna created the idea of sunyata, or emptiness. In this idea, everything is empty of self-existence because it is interconnected with everything else. Much like how the Force is one true thing that connects everything. Also, the Buddhist thoughts on attachment and suffering are mirrored in the Jedi teachings. The Buddhists believe that suffering comes from attachment to one's desires, much in the same way that Jedi believe attachment leads to anger, hatred, and then suffering. The concept of faith, or trusting in something that you can't see, has biblical roots and has been explored in many religious and thought groups. The law of attraction speaks about trusting the divine, the universe, or source energy, to make the impossible real and to manifest miracles. In Star Wars, Luke was able to let go of his anxieties and his dependence on his ship's targeting equipment and made a shot that seemed utterly impossible. This was because he trusted in Obi-Wan's words about using the Force. Become a Force user yourself and push that like and subscribe button below. The Force is a tool that can be used for light or dark, depending on the intentions and mental state of who's using it. Many people see the Jedi as beings who are supposed to be stoic and have no emotions. The best Jedi have control over their emotion, whereas the Sith are incredibly emotional, unstable, and wind up lashing out because of it. Balance is a common concept in many real-world philosophies, so many that we wouldn't be able to list them all here. As you can see, the Force, and Star Wars itself, is a melting pot of influences from various cultures and inspirations, and that's part of what makes it so relatable worldwide. In Star Wars movies, the Force is extremely important, but also somewhat downplayed in terms of raw power, at least compared to the other Star Wars projects. Most of the time, the Force either augments a character's abilities, such as allowing them to jump higher, or have much faster reaction times, or it allows them to have a spidey sense to warn them of dangerous situations and the presence of other Force users. We also see the abilities such as Force Lightning, Force Healing, and Jedi mind tricks.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
The movies use the Force as a philosophical exploration of the light and the dark side, but also as a way to move the plot along. Characters use the Force to do the impossible, to have visions and receive help, and to sway one another to the path of good or evil. But in combat, we rarely see the Force being used as a weapon on its own. For most Jedi, it's simply a tool that depends on the situation or surroundings they're in. The Sith tend to use the Force much more aggressively, and in those cases, the Force seems to be a tool to draw out an opponent's pain and suffering, which helps the audience see which side really is in the right. As Star Wars branched out into animation with shows like Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, they showed plenty of action scenes. And of course, the Jedi had to use the Force to defend themselves. We get to see a lot of cool Force powers, from telekinesis to blocking explosions, and plenty of other enhanced abilities from the Jedi and Sith. The Force gets to be shown with a lot of versatility, just by virtue of the shows being animated. But perhaps the best example of Force in animation is Genji Tartakovsky's Clone Wars series. The show thrived on action, and the Jedi were designed to be incredibly powerful with the Force. From throwing starships around like toys to defeating entire droid armies by themselves. The show is 100% amazing. It just feels like a proper Saturday morning cartoon. One of the best parts about playing video games set in the Star Wars universe is the power that comes from being a Jedi Knight. While all Jedi have access to at least some Force abilities, 2 pairs of games really let you go wild. The first is Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2. In both of these games, you get access to a wide variety of Force abilities, with many of them being locked to either the light or dark side path. You can use these in both dialogue and combat, and it can be a lot of fun to mind trick or Force choke your way out of a situation. Plus, in combat, you can unleash powerful stuns, heals, barrages of Force lightning, and even more. It really allows you to get immersed in the game, and the fact that you can build a custom Jedi or Sith to take advantage of the type of character you want just makes it all the more exciting. But by far, the best games to take advantage of just how amazing wielding the Force can get is The Force Unleashed 1 and 2. These games have you tearing up the levels, ripping starships from the sky, throwing enemies into other enemies, and firing off Force repulses every time you enter a crowded room. It's just pure fun and really shows you as a player to feel almost invincible. When you start fighting other Force users, that's when things really get interesting. Really, the games are nothing but a powerful fantasy from start to finish. The Force in Disney Plus Star Wars shows has mirrored the movies. Many Force-using characters tend to use it all at the right moments in order to advance the plot or as a tool during action scenes. However, we've gotten a few fun moments when the Force is used, such as Grogu Force-choking Cara, or saving Mando by levitating the Mudhorn, or even Jedi Master Torben using a Force shield to block May's attacks. Still, the use of the Force in these shows isn't as bombastic and wild as the animated series or video games, but that doesn't mean it's any less impressive. Hopefully, we'll see more Force powers in upcoming Star Wars projects, because it's still a central part of Star Wars lore. It turns out that Star Wars is actually creating new schools of thought right here and now. Jediism is a real belief system that focuses on resisting negative emotions that can lead a person to the dark side. Other teachings focus on being in the here and now, controlling the mind rather than allowing the mind to control you, and the practice of meditation. Honestly, it's pretty much Stoicism with lightsabers, but that shouldn't downplay the real-world benefits of applying Jedi teachings. By controlling your emotions, seeking inner peace and serenity, and allowing yourself to believe in what may seem impossible now, that strengthens you to resist the lure of the dark side in your life. Because while there might not be Sith Lords lurking around every corner, there's plenty of anger, hate, and fear which we know can lead to some pretty dark places. So, what is the Force? Well, we can go back to that first quote about it being an energy field that gives Jedi his power. But there's something much simpler that comes from the creator himself. This is Ahmed Best at a convention, telling listeners what George Lucas wants every fan to know.
So George's last thing that he said, he was like, what I want everybody to know is when you're talking about the Force, you're talking about this unseen feeling, this unseen thing that ties us all together, which is love.
So while it might be described or portrayed differently in movies, TV shows, video games, and real life, the Force works because it's so simple. Love can be used to do both good and evil, and can bring about extraordinary change. Check out this video about one of the best and worst struggles of good and evil in recent Star Wars history. And may the Force be with you.